So we are live. And if you are someone from CS 245, just type CS 245 into the chat. I know I got a few of you, but I want to make sure that I got everyone in case the roster I have is not updated. Thank you. All right, so we are Women in Tech. We've been holding these coding sessions for the last 2 semesters. The purpose of these sessions is to help prepare people for technical interviews. We do have a lot of you who are coming in from CS 245, so we've been sort of adapting the course so that it better fits your needs. So we've been doing more of an introduction to different data structures. Some of the ones that we've covered so far have been, I want to say ArrayList was the very first one. And then we did recursion last week. What else have we covered, Kesha?
We did, I think, backtracking, sorting and searching was a major part, and linked list as well.
Right. Yeah, we went over a lot of the searches and sorts before your midterm. And if you all have requests for things for us to cover before your next midterm, that would be great. Our plan for now, for next week, is to do stacks and queues, since that's what we've been seeing on your syllabi. All right, next slide, please.
Oh, oops, so it's from the start and I'll just
it went to the beginning.
So yeah, today's check-in question is, if you are blessed with one superpower, what would it be? What would you ask for? So maybe you can just drop in that in the chat window. I would love to hear your responses on that. And yeah, so for today's, as Sarah mentioned, we are going to talk a little bit on lead code. But before diving that, we'll just cover the breadth of how interview process takes place. So has anybody of you appeared for any sort of interview for internship or full-time or any other interviews? Divya, Mia?
Oh, I haven't, but I really need to.
Or do you have just an idea about how what goes into an interview process, or before you get a job, what are the different steps?
Okay, really? No, not me. I mean, yeah, I don't even have a proper resume yet.
Okay, yeah, so you mentioned about
so that's one.
Hello. Sarah, were you like telling something?
Oh, no, I was just saying, yeah, resumes are one of them. Mia wrote in the chat that she's had interviews but hasn't had the actual coding portion, and that like very first step is just finding openings.
Yeah. I think quite there, like there's a brief idea about how the process goes. So the first step, like you mentioned, is resume preparation. And there's a good guide by Professor Olga, where before our fall intake, she gave a lecture about how a resume should look like. This is like a pretty good detailed slide, which I can show. But the key takeaway points from that is it should be like a 1 page, because interviewers don't have a lot of time to review each and every application. So on average, they just scan through it in first 10 seconds to see whether there is a first impression that the employer can make of you. And if it captures his attention, then he goes more into detail and maybe spends more, about 30 seconds to maximum 1 minute of his time. So that's the overall information that you want to put in, that's digestible for a new reader, and also categorized in such a way that you can easily see sections about your education or about your projects or maybe some extracurricular activities that you have done. So yeah, one page is ideally a good thing to have, especially for when we are starting out in our careers. If we have like about 5 or 10 years of experience, and 2 pages is okay, but yeah, one page is a strict way to go for. And then there are different formats that you can put it either in the time wise way or in the functional way. So I prefer this chronological order where you put on top, which is the most relevant thing, which is your education that you are currently pursuing. And then going below, you'll have your K-12 grades or your higher education details or any other specific skills that you want to highlight. So yeah, maybe go from most important on the top to least important on the bottom. And then you include things like your header, education. So these are the different topics. So yeah, the resume creation is one part of it where it's like a huge topic to go into detail into 1 hour. But since we are covering the breadth, I'm just sharing this link and feel free to go through this presentation. And maybe we can organize a talk with Professor Olga where she can guide herself on the details of how to create it. Do you have any specific questions on when you are trying to prepare your resume? Is there anything that you want to know about? Like best practices or any confusion you had?
I actually have a question. So
Yeah.
I really don't have a good resume. So my thing is like I have no work experience or no relevant experience. And how do I make a resume with like literally nothing to put on it?
Which year you are currently in?
I'm a junior right now, but I'm doing like sophomore courses since I transferred.
Mm-hmm. So you would have a couple of projects. So if you don't have a real world experience, projects are a good way to showcase that you have worked on something which is like just beyond few lines of codes, which is like a bigger thing that you have end-to-end goals. So in projects, you can describe about what was the problem that you are trying to tackle, then what was the solution that you came up with, what are the technologies you used in that solution. So you can have a short paragraph about like 2 or maximum 3 projects on your resume. And I'm sure you would have some other things over here, like you would have some hobbies or some passions, and if you have achieved something in your like hobbies or passion, then you can also include that as well. If you are part of this like women in tech community, this itself is a good thing to put in on your resume, that you are doing something to uplift all the women together and being a part of such a community. So that also comes like in a leadership role or maybe in a community involvement. There are a lot of things. So you just sit sit on yourself and try to think about what are the things that make me unique, or what are the things that I have done, and maybe just put it down together, and you'll, I think one page you'll come up with it. Have you done any like good projects in your?
Yeah, so that's my thing too. I haven't worked on any projects either. And I'm like so new here. I don't know where can I like find projects to work on, or how do you go about that?
So projects are not like a huge thing. It could be like as simple as your lab assignments or your daily homework that you have. I think one of the courses had this inverted index. Are you like taking that course where the professor asked to build inverted index over the entire semester, like in little chunks? Have you taken that course?
No, I
Not quite,
haven't
because
done
they
that.
need that. They need the class they're in right now. It's a prereq for that one, but they will get to it. The search engine for software dev.
Yeah.
One suggestion I have for those of you who are CS 245 is, and like even your previous classes, just whatever your final project ends up being for the class, just use that. Like make a title for it, and explain what you did, what algorithms you used, what data structures you used. That's a really good starting point. Once you move on to more advanced projects, you can replace those starter projects with them.
Yeah. And another good thing to add is if you have like create a separate things, like somebody just likes to develop their own website or create your own portfolios. If like the skills like HTML or CSS, you can learn online from courses like Udemy or just YouTube in general. So creating a HTML page is not that difficult. So if you just Google it, it would take about a weekend to come up with a good page, a good design. It could be very simple, like having some text, some headers, some paragraph or some images inside it. So those all are like 2-3 lines of code each, and you can create a page about yourself, and that itself becomes a project. And you can just put that also as a link to someone who can just read about you. Make sense? So there are some skills that you can learn online and just try to create a short project out of it. Maybe we can discuss this in the next section a little bit. Have you worked with HTML ever, Divya?
I haven't, like, I've done like very little, but yeah, just learning what I had to, like, I guess in grade 12.
Maybe then you can try this weekend and we can connect offline also if needed.
Oh yeah, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. That sounds good.
And I got a request to share some of the links. So what I'll do is I'll take all the links from our slides today and I'll put them in like one post on the Algo series channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would also be posting the slides as well, so you can just refer to them. Then the second thing, yeah, somebody mentioned, I think Mia mentioned, is finding the right openings. So finding openings is a tricky thing. There are a lot of places that you can find those. There are some public websites like LinkedIn, Handshake, Canvas, or some careers page of the company that you are interested in, or Indeed. So there are multiple places that you can see which are the relevant ones. You can sort it according to your location preference or your particular role preference, like you are looking for software engineering internships for the summer, for the fall, which term you are looking for. So there are various filters available on mostly each of these public websites that you can use to find the right positions, that companies that you want. Then the other way is referrals. So USF also has a good alumni network on LinkedIn, which you can join, and just write in like alumni at say Google, then it will give you all the list of people who have graduated from USF and currently working at Google. So that way you can just send them a connect request and say that I'm interested in interning. Can you just refer me? So for referrals, you don't need any sort of like a good base. You can just reach out to people on LinkedIn, find some friends who are working in some good companies and just ask them that, can you put my resume in your careers database? So that's the second way. Then the third is conferences. Have you heard about Grace Hopper conference, anyone? Sarah, have you attended Grace Hopper ever?
Yes, so I attended virtually in 2021. For those of you who identify as women in the group, this is a really good opportunity to talk to either software engineers from some of the larger companies or to talk to recruiters. We have a couple people each year who end up getting internships or jobs by attending. And if you aren't a woman, there's other opportunities. There's 2 other conferences listed there too.
Yeah, so there's this RSA conference and Tapia conference. I think Tapia is open for all. Yeah, RSA is also open for all. And for Grace Hopper, there's also an upcoming deadline. So the conference sponsors students to attend them and covers the ticket cost as well as some other costs. So if you want to get sponsored, the deadline for it is 30th March, which is like 1 week after now. And they require in the application some basic details about which course you are pursuing and when are you graduating. Plus, there are 2 essay questions. So what do you aim to get out of the conference, or why do you want to get the scholarship for it? So I think there is just 200 words essay limit on the 2 essay questions and 1 referral letter that you need from any of the professors that know you personally or you have taken their courses. So yeah, if you want to put in an application for a scholarship, it's a good time right now because we are just 1 week before it. So you should consider that. And also there are a lot of big companies that have programs designed specifically for freshman and sophomore year, because they do understand that coming just right in the college, you cannot have a whole resume built or a lot of projects done together. So they have these programs like Microsoft has Explore and Google has a program called STEP, where they just like select people based upon their curiosity, their interest, or just their rational thinking, their logical thinking skills. So they select a group of students and they go through a 12-week program where they just give you an idea about how it is to be as a software engineer, and just give you a little tiny pieces of work that will give you a feel about how it is working as a software engineer. So yeah, those internships are also a good way to search for it. I've just mentioned 2 companies over here, but I'm sure there would be other companies like Facebook or any other company which is a big name, which also would have a program like this. So you have to search for it. So yeah, like there are so many ways that you can just look around yourself and see some openings in your vicinity, find some people who are working there, or go to a conference and meet up some people, go to some booths and find some programs like this to apply for. Any questions on this, like how to apply? So this is the first step. If you don't apply, then nobody would know that you exist in the world and you are looking for internship or you are looking for something. So this is actually a very critical first step, that you need to get yourself connected to the employer and you have to put yourself in the market out that I'm available to work. I'm looking for an exposure.
And Divya, you asked a question in the chat. I just want to clarify. What do you mean? Like, do you mean like, should you take CS 245 to attend, or?
Oh yeah, like how much would I need to know to be at a conference like that? Or
oh, you don't really need to know anything. Don't worry.
So yeah, I can just like apply and
yeah. So I was in a couple of chats with, like, for example, you sign up to chat with engineers or recruiters. I actually didn't get a lot of them with recruiters. I got a lot of the ones with engineers, and they just kind of like want to know your interests. They like really want to just chat with you very like casually. No one's going to ask you like leak code questions or anything like that. What might happen though is after one of those chats, they will sometimes send you a link to apply for an internship. And then once you start that process, there might be like a phone screening or some of the other things that Kesha is going to talk about today. But no one's going to like in their first conversation with you, like make it an interview.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So are we going to be like talking more about what the whole Grace Hopper conference is about, or?
I can definitely like talk to you more about it another time. What we usually do is like I think like a month or two before the conference, we actually have like a larger meeting where we prepare for the conference together. We share resumes and do that kind of thing. But I can look into getting you a little more information.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, and also there are 2 ways to get sponsored, I guess. One is through their official GHC Anita Bog Institute, and the second one is through USF. So the first one, the upcoming deadline would be on the 30th March. Right, Sarah? There would be another round of opening for USF specific students as well.
That's usually what we do. I still haven't heard from like our CS department chair on that and our faculty advisor, but usually what happens is like around May, there's an application to apply for funding from USF. So if you don't get funding from Grace Hopper themselves, hopefully it happens this year, but it's been happening every year. We usually offer our own funding as well. And then there's an application and I think a letter of rec that you need to get for that one.
Yeah. But yeah, since we are still on time, why to just take a chance more and apply for the Grace Hopper conference directly. So yeah, it's a good time. There's 1 week still to the application, and I think it could be achieved if you're looking forward to it. And the next, so once you apply and talk to a recruiter or something like that, the first step is pre-screening the candidates, like whether you're good enough or not. So even before the lead code process and all coding interview starts, there is a little small introduction type challenge where they'll have either a coding challenge, which is hosted on one of the platforms mentioned here, like Codility, CodeSignal, or HackerRank, or there could be directly a phone screening where the recruiter will just pick up the phone and ask you a little basics about. So I think, yeah, for the sophomore and freshman, this would not be included, but if you have taken this related courses like operating system, computer networks, or database or something like that, they might ask you about it. But since you have done like this data structures, if you mention it, they can just ask you not directly something related to data structure. But I was asked in one of the Microsoft interviews, like, how would you explain recursion to a 6-year-old? Now, recursion, everybody knows what the concept is, but what they're trying to see here is, can you explain it in a very layman terms, which is understandable by anyone who does not come from a background of computer science? How well do you understand the concept yourself to explain it to someone else? So a very generic sort of question, like you don't need to explicitly prepare for it for the phone screen, but with your current knowledge, you can answer most of the questions. So that's the phone screen round. For the coding, so since this is very platform specific, it's always a good idea to get familiar with the platform. So just know which platform the company prefers and what is the format that they use. Like there would be a specific problem statement given, there would be some test cases, some limit constraints on the input and output, and you have to write a code, which is like the main part to get some output. So just be familiar how to run that, how to debug if there are any problems in between, how to just test for some inputs, how to put some custom inputs. So being familiar with like at least one or two of these platforms is always a good idea. And then the more platforms, it's almost the repetition of what it has, just the user interface is a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because I know Kesha explained that super, super well, but I want to give you like a bad example. So I think around the time I had finished CS 245, I got a coding assessment. I want to say it was on Code Signal, and I had never opened one of these before. And it wasn't for a company I was super interested in or anything like that. So that was part of why I didn't take it very seriously. So I just like opened the coding assessment. I was like, oh, let's see what this is about. And I basically had like 60 minutes to do about 4 questions. And just the way the questions were written, just how like testing your code worked on that platform, all of that stuff, like I probably used a good 20 minutes of the time I was given just to understand that stuff, which is obviously not a good use of time. So my recommendation, if you get a coding assessment, is they usually have a way for you to do some sample questions before you do the actual assessment. I recommend doing that first. Don't do what I did.
Yeah, that's true. And there's always a time pressure, because there would also be a time which would be ticking on the right side or somewhere on the screen that would always remind you, and you'd feel like pressure. So in a normal circumstance, if you are able to solve that answer, it's even more difficult to solve it in a code challenge or code signal sort of a platform. Yeah, then there could be like a generic problem statement, like one of your labs or one of your homework assignments, like a short description of the problem, and you have to either send it them to over to email or just submit on a GitHub. Maybe if you have not used GitHub, we can cover it later. But yeah, so they might just ask you for a simple problem and just answering over email. So in that, maybe a good practice or something that the other side of the table is looking for is you use appropriate variable names. Just not use int a is something, int b is something. You use like proper quantity, cost, any variable name which actually makes sense what it is trying to do. Use comments inside. Or include one additional file called readme or something like that, which describes what your thinking process is or what your algorithm does or what your solution entails. So yeah, these are some of the things that when a generic problem statement like this is given, what the other person looking at the answer generally evaluates. Even though you are getting the right answer, and if you have done it very badly, then chances are that even with the right answer, you might not get selected. And even if your answer is sometimes a little wrong, like doesn't work for a little some edge cases, but you have used this coding standards, use good practices, then it's a chance that they'll also get you to the next round of interviews. So yeah, be mindful of those things. And the last one is like there could be specific problem statement, like if you're looking for front end, they might ask you about HTML. If you're looking for testing roles, they might ask you about Selenium. For machine learning roles, then they might ask you a data challenge. So depending upon the type of role that you're looking for, you can get asked specific problem statements in pre-screening round. Any questions on this? So this is before the actual interview starts, like in between your application, they like your resume, and after, before they invite you to spend some time with their engineer, because engineers' times are quite valuable for the company. So they'll just do a pre-screening with the recruiter or some other way.
Oh yeah, I have a question. So is this like for the Grace Hopper scholarship, or this is just like a general job interview?
A general job interview.
Okay.
So we have stopped talking about Grace Hopper.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It was just a means to apply and get like job openings. But yeah, now we are just talking most about all the different companies, and the companies might have specific different things, but in general, like 80% you can cover, companies cover all this different forms. So this is an example of a generic problem statement. This is one of the companies in San Francisco, and I was given this challenge where there's a string which was given to me, and I had to extract words, individual words, and then make a map about tests. So how many times test occurs? So it's 3 times. So I have to sort all the words in an inverted, in a decreasing order of how many times it occurs in the string. So this is similar to the inverted index or the search engine that you would be building, and it was actually asked in one of the interviews for me. So it was a good exercise if you have already done your homework assignments better. And once you have this test working, they also give you like a paragraph over here. Like they have a sample answer in their workspace, and if your answer matches to their answer with the sample input, then they would generally consider it as a pass. Okay, so now once you have passed the phone screen, it comes to the actual interview that you are going to talk with one of the engineers. So there are different things that you might be asked about, but yeah, this generally goes in the format of the interviewer first introduces himself, like what he does at the company, how many years he is at the company, what his work is, and then the second step would be you have to introduce yourself. So this as a homework you can always do is prepare a 30-second to 1-minute elevator pitch. Why it is called elevator pitch? Because say for example, you meet someone in the elevator, say you meet CEO of Google in the elevator. So you just want to introduce yourself. How would you do it quickly and most efficiently? So create like a statement like, my name is this, I'm studying this, these are my interests, I'm looking for this. Just 4 statements, it's enough. And you can just introduce yourself in such a manner in 30 seconds to 1 minute time. Maybe we can also have like a deep dive about this interview preparation entire thing, where we can just also have help you with how to create your own elevator pitch. Then the second thing is a technical problem. So once the introduction is done, then maybe they'll also ask you a little bit about your past projects. So whatever you've mentioned on your resume, it's always a fair game to ask anything related to your resume. So maybe just be very mindful what you put inside that, because you also would be asked follow-up questions regarding it. For any project, also a good way to think is just think about this different dimensions and be sure you can talk about it in a little detail about what the problem is, what solution that you came up with, were there any alternatives to the solution that you considered, and what were the trade-offs for that alternative, why did you not consider that, and why is your solution better, what are the technologies that you used in coming up with the solution, and what are the specific challenges, like what was a challenge that you overcame while working on the project. And if it was a team work, then they might also ask you some behavioral questions related to how was the team, did you have a conflict with any team member, how did you get it resolved. So some sort of those questions can also be asked. So the second thing would be like talking just about your resume. Then they would jump into the technical questions, where either one of the lead code style questions could be given to you, which is based upon data structures and algorithms. So your actual work might not be exactly like lead code, but that's the only way that companies generally prefer to get the candidates evaluated. So yeah, I would just say that treat it like you are studying for SAT exam or GRE exam, and just study lead code and practicing data structures and algorithms on it, and then you will nail it like you did in the SAT exams.
Thank you, Kesha. We have two pretty good questions in the chat, and I want to see like what answers you might have for these. The first one, I'm going to actually do the second one first. The first one was, can international students apply for internships? Do you want to talk about your experience with that?
Yeah, so I'm also an international student over here, but I'm in a grad year. So grad curriculum has a requirement of an internship in the summer, and that's why we are allowed to do it. But as a undergrad student, there is a requirement that you have to be in the US at least for 9 months on your F1 visa before starting an internship. So if you have been already 9 months in your program, then yes, you are eligible for internships. And there's also a cap on the amount of time that you are. So generally the students are on F1 visa, and that I think is 1 year of CPT that it allows. And for STEM courses, it's 36 months of OPT after it. So yeah, if you are within that time limit, then you are eligible for internships. And yeah, I can also help you through the process of it, like how to get the offer and how to get it reviewed. You have to submit to the ISIS department, the International Student Services department, and get a letter from them, and then file it to the company. So to get the CPT. So yeah, there's a process involved in it. It takes time, but yeah, it's definitely doable.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then the other question, this one I think is a little harder. Mia asked, if you don't know what kind of job or role you want in a career, what would you recommend to do when applying?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. So yeah, I think I can completely relate to where you are coming from. So when I even started, I did not have any idea about what I want to do. And internships are specifically meant for that it's a short program. It's of 3 months or 2 months, basically. So you get to try out hands at different things. So maybe if you're looking for the first time, I would just try to advise you that just look for any breadth that you want, like any sort of job that comes across. Maybe it's related to software engineering, a data analyst, or a testing role. Anything that you find which has a requirement of studying computer science or studying as an undergraduate or related fields. If you feel that you are matching that criteria, just go forward and apply for it and try your luck to get selected for the interview. For me specifically, when I started my career, I did it in finance background. Like I got an internship from Morgan Stanley, which belonged to a finance domain. So they just had the requirement that I should be a computer science student, but I did not have any background about banking or any stocks, bonds, anything related to the finance domain. So I thought that what would I do being there? But then once I was onboarded, it was very easy because they have that program designed in such a way that you don't feel uncomfortable with whatever their domain is, be it their healthcare domain, be it like banking domain or e-commerce domain, any domain that is. I think the internship programs are designed in a way that you won't feel uncomfortable doing that. There would be a lot of orientations that would be given. So yeah, just try your luck at every opportunity that you see, and just keep your doors open.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Try everything. The other thing I'll add is I am also similar to Kesha, like this is my second career. So one of the things that I really try to take into account is what will career growth look like for something that I might be considering. So I'm really obsessed with the US Bureau of Labor Statistics website. There's a lot of great resources on there. And I'm going to add a link for you all. This is the occupational outlook handout for computer information technology occupations. So it has a list of like kind of the main categories of this field. They might not be the same names you're used to seeing on job descriptions, which is unfortunate. I wish it kind of lined up a little bit better. But on there, you can kind of click through the different occupations and see like, what does the actual work look like? You can see what the job outlook is. So some of them are actually growing like much faster than average. Some of them are decreasing. what states have more of those jobs than others, like other things that you may want to consider when deciding what you specifically might want to do. So I'll add that to our list of resources.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like a very good pointer to begin with. Then apart from that, so we talked about, so then there would be like behavioral questions. Like I talked about teamwork, like did you have any conflicts? Any sort of questions that, did you fail ever in, did you ever encounter a failure, or maybe tell me some of your strengths and weaknesses. Those are like some examples of behavioral questions. And there is a particular method called STAR technique, which is a well-defined method to answer any such behavioral questions, where you prepare some short stories where STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So then you just describe what the situation at hand was, what action, what task you were supposed to do, what action did you do in order to complete that task, and then what was the final outcome of it. An example for it would be like, tell me about a time that you disagreed with your boss. So that's a really difficult question, because you never try to disagree with your professor or with your boss or somebody who is at a higher authority than you. So then you just describe the situation that I was, the task that was given to us was to find out like any example, like maybe what could be a better way to engage students amongst ourselves, like to have a greater engagement among students was the task that you were given. Like most of the students worked in an individual setup, individually on their own in this hybrid environment, like in the Zoom setup, and they did not intermingle with other students was the challenge. And then the professor thought that doing group projects would help them, and they recommended to still do virtually over Zoom call in a group project. And then you said that no, meeting in person would be a better thing to do. And that's where the conflict came from. And then you decided that let's meet in a group of 5 together and just do some fun activity or discuss some project. And then that resulted in some better group bonding. The result would be that you became more closer friends. You knew about the students more at an individual level than just meeting them for the lectures. So that could be a positive outcome in the end. So you can apply this technique, STAR technique, to any problem, any behavioral thing that is given to you. Like come up with the situation, think about a task that was given to you, think about the action that you specifically took, that what is your contribution in the action to get the results, and what was a positive result that was delivered in the end. So yeah, behavioral questions are also quite familiar in the interviews.
Yeah, I really like the example you gave, Kesha, because I think a lot of us might think, oh, what I'm going through right now like is not relevant to the workplace. So many companies are still trying to figure out what it looks like to work remotely, what it looks like to work in hybrid, what return to the office is going to look like. So even you talking about your experiences with all of the modalities you saw in your own learning the last 2 years, that is relevant. How you communicated with your professors, how you communicated with your peers, how you dealt with things being online or like not getting enough resources. Those are the same things that are going to happen to you in the workplace. So being able to use the technique Kesha provides to maybe paint a picture of what that was like, trust me, there's things that will relate to the workplace there.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Sarah. And then Divya, there was a question about what do you put on your resume? You don't have enough things. So the 5th point is specifically for that you might get involved in some extracurricular activities, either in the college or outside work, or do some volunteer with a non-profit organization. And those are a pretty good way to show that you have some leadership qualities in you. You are proactive student. You don't wait for somebody to push you, but you yourself take the initiative and make things happen. So yeah, try to like engage in some of the clubs at university, some of the organizations outside of work. Like in SF, we have this Woman Who Code San Francisco. So that's also a good non-profit organization, and I'm part of it. So if you are interested, then maybe we can connect and you can join that organization, which also meets like weekly or bi-weekly for different purposes. So yeah, you can get involved and put those things on the resume, which also shows you have a good community involvement together. And yeah, that those are like very good things to showcase on your resume. The next thing, so by the time like you talk about your technical interviews or some behavioral questions or projects, it's generally about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And the last 5 to 10 minutes, the interviewer generally says like, do you have any questions for us? It generally ends with you asking the interviewer anything related to any question under the sun. So in that time, you never say that, no, I don't have any questions or I'm good for the day. Instead, you just show enthusiasm and ask 1 or 2 questions in the end so that you can get most out of it. You can know about the culture of the company. You can know about how the day looks for the interviewer. You can ask about, has he worked ever with any interns, and what does a typical intern 3-month project look like? You can ask any of the questions to him, but never say that, no, I don't have any questions. Just ask 1 or 2 questions and try to learn more about the company, about the things that they are looking for from an interviewee, and make sure you use this opportunity well when you are allowed to ask a question to them. So that also counts while they are grading you. Yeah. And then there's also sometimes some companies just take you out informally for a lunch. Generally, it's observed at Google, like they have one lunch interview, which is not evaluated, but yeah, that's also a way that you can ask more and learn more about the company. Or there are some group discussion rounds where there are a panel of like 3 to 4 people and you are allowed to ask anything to those 3 to 4 people. Yeah. So that's generally how an interview looks. And depending upon the position that you have, like internship might have 1 or 2 rounds, but like for full time, I've seen companies also have 4 to 7 to maximum 10 rounds as well. Any questions on like the interview process or the interview step? If not, then we'll move to the next one, which is tips for the interview. Yeah. So Sarah, would you like to cover this?
Like, sure. I'll cover the one that first point, because I've heard this one a lot. When you are interviewing, and why I actually think attending the coding sessions that we're doing right now is so important. It's not like working on your assignments. You're not sitting behind a screen and just writing code, and you're not able to take your time in the same way. You're being presented with a completely novel problem, something you may not have seen before. And so one thing you really want to be able to do is talk out loud. Narrate what's going on in your head. It might sound really stupid in your head. You might be like, oh, this is really dumb. Maybe I shouldn't say this. But if you talk out loud, you give the person who's interviewing you a chance to get some insight into what you're thinking, what direction you might be going into. The interviewer is not against you. It's kind of like boring for them if they just sit there and you don't say anything the whole time. They want you to succeed. So if you're going in completely the wrong direction, you're giving them an opportunity to redirect you. If you're going in the right direction, you're giving them an opportunity to be like, yeah, okay, like tell me more about this. So just having that back and forth is going to help you get through it, especially if you're stuck. So try to talk out loud. One place that you could do that is here with us, but another thing you can do is just when you pull up LeetCode questions, after you've gotten a bit more practice with them, try actually speaking out loud as you're doing them. Even like you could even pull up Zoom and like record yourself and watch it later. Like, did anything I said make sense? But yeah, get some practice before you do that, so you don't go like, oh my God, that was terrible, I'm never gonna interview. So that was the one point I wanted to share.
Yeah, and it sounds really silly that you record yourself, but yeah, I do have those recording of myself when I started practicing on LeetCode. And then when I revisit it and see it later, then I think like, okay, I could have improved it this way. And the next time that I approach it, I remember the mistakes that I've done by rewatching myself. So recording is a good way to evaluate yourself, and you would be a better evaluator for yourself than anyone else first, and then you can ask someone else to give a feedback. So generally the format that I follow is once I read the question or once the interviewer gives me a question, the first thing is to clarify the question in your own words. So you say like, this is my understanding, did I get it right? Don't repeat the same statements, the same words, but use it in your words. So that would also ensure that you have properly understood it. Then the second is you ask about the edge cases. So if it consists of numerical data, then you say that are negative values allowed? Is zero value allowed? Are there any null values which are missing or we don't know about it? Is it like an integer which is 60 fits in the 64 bit, or it needs like even more than 64 bits, like a long data type to store it? Or can it have like a fractional value or a decimal value? So those are the kind of edge cases that you have to ask or you have to clarify. And it also makes sure like the interviewer also thinks that you are thinking broadly in the corner cases right from step one. So that's a very positive sign that you can give while you're talking about it. So once you have understood the question properly, thought about what the input could be, then the next step is tell the brute force solution, like what is the basic solution that you can come up with and what could its complexity be. So this is like, if you are able to come up with at least one even solution which is not fully optimized, but a working solution which even though is bad, but you get the right output of it, it's generally considered as a very good green flag for the interviewer, that you are actually able to think logically in the right way, you have a proper rationale, you are able to explain well, you are able to talk about the problem. So it gives the interviewer a lot of indications just till the step 3. And then 4, 5, 6 are just like add on top of it to just give a strong higher instead of just a low or a medium higher feedback about your candidacy. So yeah, once you have given the brute force solution, you then usually go and spend time either about optimizing it to get a better solution, or then the interviewer thinks that it's a good solution, and then he'll proceed to the second question to ask you another problem. So if it asks you to optimize, then you have to go forward on it. So I can share one of the experiences. Like there's a car automation company that I interviewed with last December or something. So in one of the rounds, I started with the solution which was like n square, and I optimized it and did it like to order of 1 with pre-processing and all. So that was the entire 45 minutes that was spent from getting from n square to n log n to n log k, then k log k, and then finally to order of 1. And throughout the process, I was just talking out to the interviewer, and he was giving me hints, the hints that I could follow and get to the solution. So had I just been sitting in a room and thinking to myself, I would have never been able to come up with such a solution by myself. So yeah, the interviewer wants you to succeed, and they'll give you hints if you keep talking about it. And you can, finally, like once you have talked about it and there's a go ahead, then it's a good practice to go forward and code the solution in your favorite language. Before that, it's generally like orally or either in the pseudocode form, like pseudocode form, where you don't write actual statements, but just the main heart of the logic. And then you try to compile your code if it's an online compiler, and try to run and debug it. And if not, then just write a short test case to see whether it works or not. Any questions on this? Okay, so yeah, now we'll come to some resources that you can use. So there's a website called Pram. You can make an account and have unlimited free mock interviews. So the ones that we are saying to record yourself, you can even have a peer to practice with you, where you will give him a challenge and he or she will give you a challenge. So this is like 1 hour slot that you can book on their website, and you'll get a peer like you, and you can practice some questions on there. So this is a really good website that you can use as a beginning to start with. Pram. Do check it out. It's a really good one. And then once you have the offers, like thinking that you have multiple offers or even one offers, and there are ways that you can evaluate the offer. There are different dimensions that you can think about the offer and try to negotiate if it works. Generally for internship, the offers are not pretty negotiable because they want to keep everyone at the same level. But like once you join full time or go in the higher positions, the negotiation comes very handy and it could make a huge difference in your final pay. So, or any other benefits that you get out of it. So yeah, the different parameters that you can think about for an offer is like, what is the work that you would be actually doing? Is it interesting for you? Or is it the domain that you want to do, like want to grow in? And what is the pay that they are offering? Are there any additional like bonus, stock or 401k included in it, in the offer? Then are there any health benefits like a medical insurance or dental and vision insurance? Or are there any relocation benefits that they provide you, any transportation, shuttle or any other ways, like they reimburse your fuel, or any food benefits like they have snacks or lunch or dinner provided at their offices? Or like do you have to go in person to the office, or is it hybrid, or it's still completely remote? Would you meet your peers? Would there be like a commute every day, or would it be like a hybrid that you would be going like few days, and depending upon the team availability and all, it would be like flexible? Then for international students, how like there are many companies that don't accept international students, so it's also a good way to know like which are the companies that accept it and only apply for those for international students, and how much supportive they are to carry forward your visa. Like going from CPT, you would obviously need OPT and then go for H1B or anything like that. So just look at the history of the company, like how supportive it has been. And there are a lot of websites like levels.fyi and others where you can compare and read about it. And finally, how the company culture is, like, are the employees really happy about it? So there's a website called Blind, where people post, like the employees of it post reviews about the company, and they are pretty honest than Glassdoor also have it, but they are like, I think, biased in my opinion. But there are websites like Blind where you can see like more detailed honest opinions, because they are mostly anonymized. So yeah, and there's more detail about the company culture written in that website. So yeah, it then comes to just reading through the offers. Any questions on it? If not, then just let's quickly talk about the timeline. So generally for internships also, it takes about 2 to 4 months to get the entire process end to end. If you are lucky, then it could also get like within 15 days or 1 month. But yeah, on average, it takes about 2 to 4 months to get response from the interviewers, get everything scheduled, go on the time, and get the result finally in the end. So yeah, the thing is, please prepare well in advance. Just don't think that I have a summer internship and I'll just start applying in April and see where it goes. Try to start as early as possible. So for now, you can also apply for summer, plus also you can think about the next year itself, or some fall or spring semester if you're allowed to do such internships as a part-time. So think about it well in advance, because it's not like you think about it and you've got it. There's an entire process associated with it, and you also need to be mindful of time of the other party, like the other person, to make himself available to schedule your interview. And a lot of companies just might ghost you, so they might even not respond you like you are selected or you are rejected. So don't be disheartened when you see like rejection mails, because it's just the normal norm. Like you apply to 50 places, you apply to 100 places, and you just hear back from 5 or 10 of those companies. But you treat those 5 or 10 companies very well and just go forward till the last round for those companies. Don't think about the rest, like 90 companies. Don't think like, why I'm not selected. There could be any different reason about it. Don't take it personally that they have rejected me. It's just their company, their policy, that they might not have the opening in the right place, or they might not be very active about it, or they might have already found someone and just kept their opening on the job portal as it is. So there could be any reason. They might not accept international students. So it's not they did not like you, but it's just the company is not accepting at the moment. Don't take it personally for any rejection that you get. And then once you don't hear back from a company, you can also put a follow-up email if you are in touch with a recruiter on a one-on-one basis, or just find some university recruiter on LinkedIn and put them cold messages saying that I've applied for this role. This is my application ID. And can you please check it up where the process is or what are the next steps for me? So you can put those things also in LinkedIn to any of the recruiters and try to get a follow-up on it. Any questions?
I know we have one more slide to cover. I just put in a link to a survey that we have. We're trying to get more feedback from you all, and just in terms of how to plan our next few sessions. So just steal that link right now. We're going to go through our very last slide of resources for you.
Yeah, so there are some good books that are recommended, like Cracking the Coding Interview is considered like one of the theoretical Bibles, and Lead Code is like the practical Quran of it. So most of the practice that you do could be on the platform like Lead Code or HackerRank or Top Code, any of the online platforms. So we plan to cover before like a demo of it, but I think there's no time for it right now. But there are two versions generally of it. One is the free unpaid version, which also gives you a lot of problems, a lot of resources, which would be very sufficient in order to crack the first interview. But if you think that you are already at a level and you think you want to go to a more advanced level, then it makes sense to pay to have a paid version and get yourself some more extra premium benefits of it. But yeah, to begin with, I think free is completely the way to go. There are a lot of problems which you can start with, and maybe do you already have a Lead Code account? Can you just give a thumbs up if you have? Sarah has. Rest of you? Oh, wow. So can you give me any other emoji if you don't have, because I'm not sure if you're not answering to my question or you are, okay, I see. So, okay, you are not having a Lead Code account. So it makes sense then to have a session on how to create an account and just practice a few problems as a beginner point for it. And also there are some add-on plugins that you can include in Chrome to use that website more effectively. So yeah, you can install, I can give you tips about how to use it more effectively with some plugins.
I like that. Maybe next session we start here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's towards the end. So if you have any questions for me, we can talk about it right now for a few minutes. And please, submit the short feedback because it helps us organizing the next session. So you have got a lot of materials right now. So just tell us about if there anything in detail that you would like to have, like a resume preparation workshop, or talking about Grace Hopper conference, or doing a prep interview, like a one-on-one mock interviews in this series. Anything that you have, suggestions, any feedback, anything that you want to discuss, please let us know so that we can organize it better for you.
Definitely. This was an amazing session. Thank you so much, Kesha. You've been like an amazing resource for all of us. I have names of people that I have from CS 245. I just put that in the chat. If I missed you, I think we have like one person who may not be from there. Let me know if you are in CS 245 and I just don't have you on the roster. But with that, next week, the plan is to go over stacks and queues, which I believe is something you're going over now. Did anyone go over stacks this week or queues? Can we get like some hands? Has anyone heard of stacks or queues yet? Okay, I see one hand. Okay, yes, I heard. So you've heard of stacks. Okay, cool. So I think you'll be going over that this week or next week. So the plan is to start with that one next week. If there's any other stuff that you want us to cover, make sure to include it in the survey. And I'm going to stop the recording here.